Good morning, Emma. You look much more awake today.
I feel much better than yesterday. I actually got out of bed as soon as my alarm went off.
That's already a great start. Do you know what most people do during the first 10 minutes after waking up?
I have a feeling you're going to say they check their phones.
Bingo! Before their brain has fully woken up, they're already reading messages, checking emails, and scrolling through social media.
Wow, you read my mind because I did exactly that this morning.
Don't worry, almost everyone does. But imagine replacing those first 10 minutes with English instead.
Would 10 minutes really make that much difference?
Let me answer with another question. If you practiced the piano for 10 minutes every morning for a whole year, would you expect to improve?
Of course I would.
English works the same way. The problem isn't that people don't study. The problem is that they study once a week instead of giving their brain a small daily reminder.
So today's goal isn't to learn 100 new words.
Not at all. Today's goal is much more interesting than that. I want your brain to spend the next 10 minutes living in English.
I like that expression. Living in English sounds completely different from studying English.
Because it is different. Think about what you've done since you woke up this morning. Did you make your bed? Did you brush your teeth? Did you look outside? Those moments happened in real life. Today, we're simply going to experience them again, but this time in English.
That already sounds much easier than memorizing vocabulary lists.
It also happens to be much closer to the way children learn a language. Nobody gives a child 20 random words to memorize before breakfast. They talk about breakfast while breakfast is happening.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Now, let me ask you something. What's the very first thing you noticed after you opened your eyes this morning?
The first thing I noticed this morning was the sunlight coming through my window. For a second, I just stayed there looking at it.
That's actually a wonderful way to start the day. Most mornings begin much more quietly than we realize. It's usually our phone that makes everything feel rushed.
You're right. The room was completely silent. And then my phone completely changed the mood. One notification became 5. 5 became 10. Before I knew it, my brain was already thinking about work.
Isn't that interesting? Nothing had actually happened yet. You were still at home. The day hadn't even started. But your mind was already somewhere else.
That's exactly how it feels. Sometimes I haven't even made my coffee and I'm already thinking about meetings.
That's one reason mornings are such a powerful moment for learning. Your brain is still fresh. You're not carrying the stress of the day yet.
So if I spend those first few minutes with English instead of social media, my brain starts the day differently?
Exactly. Instead of reacting to information, you're creating it. That's a huge difference.
I've never thought about English that way. I've always treated it like another subject to study.
What if we treated it like part of your morning instead? Tell me, what did you do after getting out of bed?
I walked straight to the kitchen. I wanted coffee more than anything else.
I think a lot of people watching can relate to that.
I honestly don't feel like myself until I've had my first cup.
Coffee has an interesting way of becoming part of people's routines. It's almost like a signal. Your brain starts thinking, okay, now the day is really beginning.
That's exactly what happens to me. While the coffee is brewing, I finally start waking up.
I like that expression. The coffee is brewing. It's much more natural than simply saying, I'm making coffee.
Really?
Think about it. When you make coffee with a coffee maker, you're usually waiting. The coffee is brewing. That's the process that's happening.
That actually sounds like something I'd hear in a movie.
You probably have. Native speakers often describe what's happening around them instead of only describing themselves. It's a small difference, but it makes the language feel much more alive.
I love that. Instead of saying I'm making coffee, I can picture the coffee brewing.
It almost creates a little scene in my head.
Exactly. And that's how your brain remembers language better, not as isolated words, but as experiences. That's one of the biggest secrets of language learning. Your brain loves stories, it loves images, and it loves moments.
Speaking of mornings, there's one thing I always do while I'm waiting for my coffee.
Let me guess. You look out the window?
How did you know?
Because a lot of people do exactly the same thing. They stand there for a minute. Maybe they're still waking up. Maybe they're thinking about the day ahead. Or maybe they're just watching the neighborhood slowly come to life.
That's such a good description. Some mornings I see people walking their dogs. Other mornings I see someone jogging. Sometimes everything is completely quiet.
And that's a perfect opportunity to think in English. Not because you have to, but because you're already observing the world. Instead of thinking, how do I say tree? Or how do I say car? Try describing the whole picture. You might think, the street is still quiet. Or, the sun is coming up.
They're all complete thoughts. That's wonderful.
Exactly. That's how native speakers experience language. They don't look outside and think, tree, car, bird. They think about what's happening.
That actually feels much more natural. It's almost like narrating the moment.
That's a great way to describe it. You're becoming the narrator of your own morning, and every morning gives you a completely different story. Now imagine, tomorrow morning, instead of reaching for your phone immediately, you walk to the window, take a slow breath, look outside, and simply describe what you see.
That sounds surprisingly relaxing. It doesn't even feel like studying.
Because it isn't. It's living your normal life, with English quietly becoming part of it.
I have a feeling that's much easier to repeat every day.
Consistency is usually built on things that feel simple enough to become habits. That's why 10 enjoyable minutes every morning often produce better results than 2 exhausting hours once a week.
You know, we've only been talking for a few minutes, but I already feel like I've used more real English than I normally use before lunch.
And we're only getting started, because the next part of your morning is where most people stop observing and start rushing. That's exactly where English can become even more practical.
You're right about rushing. Everything changes after those quiet first minutes.
What usually happens next?
I suddenly realized what time it is. I look at the clock and think, okay, now I really need to move.
I think we've all had that moment. 1 minute you're peacefully drinking your coffee. The next minute you're wondering where the last 15 minutes went.
Exactly. That's when I start walking much faster around the house. I'm looking for my keys, checking if I packed my laptop, making sure I didn't forget anything important.
Isn't it funny how our mornings follow the same pattern almost every day?
They really do. Even when every day feels different, the routine is almost always the same.
And that's why mornings are such a great opportunity to practice English. You're not inventing new situations, you're describing things that already happen. Now, tell me something. What's usually the last thing you do before leaving home?
I always stop for a second. I look around the apartment to make sure I didn't leave anything behind.
That's a habit a lot of people have.
Then I grab my bag, lock the door, and head downstairs. That's when the day really begins.
I like that expression. The day really begins. Because that's how it feels. Everything before that is preparation. Once you step outside, you're part of the world again.
I never realized how many little moments there are before work even starts.
Exactly. And each one gives you something real to think about in English. Not because you're forcing yourself, but because you're paying attention.
I think that's the biggest difference today. I'm noticing things I normally ignore.
That's one of the hidden benefits of learning a language. You become more observant. You start describing your world instead of simply moving through it.
That's actually beautiful. It almost makes an ordinary morning feel more interesting.
Think about what happens after you leave home. What do you usually see first?
Usually people. Someone is walking their dog, someone is waiting for the bus, someone is unlocking their car. The neighborhood slowly wakes up.
That's exactly the kind of detail native speakers naturally notice.
So instead of asking myself, what's the English word for sidewalk, I could simply think, people are heading to work.
That's a much more natural thought. You can start doing it tomorrow morning. Nothing about your routine has to change. You're still making coffee, you're still getting ready. The only difference is that now you're experiencing those moments through English.
That makes the habit feel much less intimidating.
That's important because habits only last when they fit naturally into your life.
You know what's interesting? A few minutes ago, I thought we were going to spend 10 minutes studying English. Now it feels like we're spending 10 minutes paying attention to life.
And English is simply the language we're using to describe it. That's a very different mindset.
I have another question. What happens if I don't know a word? Should I stop and look it up?
That's a great question, and I actually recommend the opposite. Let's imagine you see a bird you've never seen before. You don't know its name in English. Does that stop you from describing it?
I guess not. I could say, there's a beautiful bird on that tree, even if I don't know the exact kind of bird.
Exactly. Communication doesn't stop because one word is missing.
That's such a different approach. I usually stop the moment I don't know a word.
And that's exactly what interrupts your thinking. Imagine you're telling a friend a story. Would you stop for 2 minutes because you couldn't remember one word? Probably not. You'd simply explain it another way.
So fluency isn't knowing every word, it's knowing how to keep the conversation alive.
Bingo! That's one of the best definitions of fluency I've ever heard. Keep the conversation moving. People often underestimate what 10 consistent minutes can do. Let me ask you something. If you practiced English for 10 minutes every morning, how many minutes would that be after 1 week?
70 minutes.
And after 1 month?
Around 5 hours.
Without chanting your life, without spending your entire evening studying, without feeling overwhelmed.
When you say it like that, it actually sounds much more realistic. I've always tried to find huge blocks of free time. Maybe that's why I never stayed consistent.
Consistency almost always beats intensity. A small habit you repeat every day is much more powerful than a big plan you only follow once in a while.
I think a lot of people need to hear that, including me.
I hope this becomes part of your morning routine, not because you have to, but because it feels good, because it helps, and because it reminds you that fluency is built one day at a time.
I already know what I'm going to do tomorrow morning. Before I scroll through social media, I'm going to give myself 10 quiet minutes in English.
I think your future self is going to thank you for that decision. And what about you? How do you usually spend the first 10 minutes of your morning? Are you going to give this 10-minute English habit a try tomorrow? Tell us in the comments below.
If you want to take this mindset even further, you don't want to miss our next video.
That's right. Click on the screen right now to watch 6 phrases that take you from beginner to fluent at work and keep building your real-world confidence.
Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next lesson. Bye.
See you next time. Bye.